If you didn't know, today is Inauguration Day. And many people are seeing this not only as Inauguration Day of a new presidential administration, but they're viewing it in many ways, in many tangible, practical ways, as the end of the world, as the end of all days, as if because the administration is different, that God is no longer on the throne. That's wrong. They need to stop doing that. But here's the thing, that's not what I want to talk about today. What I do want to talk about instead is the idea that of what unity is. Because there's going to be a lot of calls for unity and for us to come together now. And so, is it possible for Christians to finally put aside stuff and to come together? Well, that is, in fact, what Jesus prayed for. In John chapter 17, there's something called the high priestly prayer, as it's kind of been branded, where Jesus audibly prays for his contemporary disciples, the one present there in the room with him, and then also in verse 20 he pivots and he actually says that he's not just praying for those ones, but also the ones who would believe because of their testimony, us now. And he prays a specific thing for them, that verse 20, I do not ask for these only, but also for those who would believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. He is praying to God, the Father, on our behalf, that we would be unified, that we would be one, even as the Father and Christ are one, that we may abide in the unity of the Trinity, in the same way that we would abide within one another, the way that they have abided in each other. Like, this is a monumental thing that we have missed, and that that some of the silly things that Christians have divided over time, ethnicity and what kind of instruments to use or not use, whether or not, like, there's so many things that Christians have just needlessly divided over, and it has not reflected positively on Christ. We have made Christ less attractive because of this, and it needs to end. But the thing is, often when we come across this, our prayer for unity is not what he was praying. I pray that other people would change their minds and conform to being like me so that we can be unified. That's not what Jesus was praying for. He was praying that we would all be unified as he and the Father are unified. That's a totally different species of unity that we almost don't even have a category for. So, what does this mean? It means that, have you ever heard the saying, it takes two to fight, but it only takes one to unify. It only takes one to be reconciled. Christ is praying that we as believers would be the one to reconcile. And we don't like doing that because we think these things are important, and that just the whole thing, like, we have tons of rationalizations why our opinion is more valid than that person's identity or that person's value, their imago Dei value. But listen, and yes, notice how it's timeless. It's that they all may be one. So there are some historical things we do need to unify around. That is true. But the goal is not to make them more like us. It is to make them more like Christ. To like Christ more, maybe, is the better way to word it. So, on today, being Inauguration Day, I hope that you would see this prayer and maybe rewire it a little bit. that instead of you constantly praying for other people to stop being the way they are and to be more like you, maybe you would instead begin to pray to God that He would make you an agent of unity. What does that mean? Well, for one thing, it could very easily mean that you make some concessions. Some of the stuff that's just not all that important, you just kind of let some of that stuff go, maybe. Just maybe. Or maybe you try crossing the tracks on your own. Go to someone else's church and see what it's like. Maybe actually, instead of believing the rumors that you've heard, maybe try it out for yourself and see what it's like. Because you know what? Maybe you'll find out you like that place better. And maybe the reason that you don't do this is that you're afraid that you will like it more. Maybe. And maybe the idea is that, hey, you'll just sit down with someone who is a Pentecostal, someone who is a Catholic, someone who is an Eastern Orthodox, someone who is a Protestant, a Methodist, a Southern Baptist, a Republican or a Democrat, someone who's different than you, and maybe you'll find out that you're close. Maybe you're going to find out that you don't actually disagree about that many things. Maybe you will have won a friend in the process. And maybe in doing so, you'll actually reflect Christ a little bit more accurately, and maybe the gospel will go forwards because of it.